What's up? It is New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2024. I spent the last couple of weeks kind of reflecting on the year, thinking back on what are the most important lessons, takeaways, things that I learned from the year, which for me personally was probably one of the biggest years of growth and change and excitement that I've had in over a decade. So I have a lot to share with you. I think you're going to get a ton out of it. Let's get into it right away. So for me, this year, a lot happened. I shut down my agency. I bought a house. This fall, we got freaking slammed by a Hurricane Helene in Asheville, where I live. I launched a new program in Stealth this year. I shared publicly that I'm a person in long-term recovery. I also took some big risks in my business. Some didn't work out, which is fine. And all through that process, I was secretly mentoring 40 entrepreneurs all year. Okay. This was something that never was really announced or published or anything. It was invitation only. We just worked very closely together a couple of times a week. And a lot of good came from that, as well as all the other things that happened. But many of the lessons I'm going to share with you are insights that have been learned from everything that I went through this year and everything that I did working with those 40 entrepreneurs this year. All right, so let's get into it. I have 10 lessons to share with you that I learned in 2024. So the first one is something that I've talked about a bit already, and I call it work-life integration or alignment. And at the start of the year in January 2024, I think if you had asked me what the theme of the year was going to be or what my word of the year was going to be, I probably would have said something like leverage. At that time, I was thinking a lot about what things really moved the needle in my business, which didn't, creating space for better opportunities and better vehicles to express myself, and also removing things that weren't working. I read the book 10X is easier than 2X, and I was all in on like 10X in January. But ironically, looking backward on the year here on December 31st, it's pretty clear that in fact, in hindsight, the word of the year was alignment. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. And this is the most profound lesson for me by far in 2024. I think everything else that I'm going to discuss for the rest of this all circles back to this idea of alignment. And this is about how I found alignment in my life and business. And I've talked about this before. I have a longer video about it if you're interested. Just look it up on my YouTube channel. And basically for me, the big secret and the big bottleneck to everything that I was doing in business is that I'm a person in long-term recovery from addiction. And I've been in recovery for over 13 years. It's honestly like the most important part of my life. And the entire journey that I've had as an entrepreneur, this was something that was kept completely separate from work, totally separate. And I had really designed this business, which was optimized for profit and free time. And the business was built so that I spent as little time as possible on the business, making as much money as possible, so then I could go over into my life and do whatever I want. And while that seems not terrible in hindsight, my experience is that it works until it doesn't, right? And what I found was I was throttling myself in a major, major way by not sharing that I was a person in recovery. I was purposely putting a wall up where I wasn't able to bring that experience into my work. And earlier this year, when I finally did share it, first I shared it with my clients, then I shared it publicly. A lot of really amazing stuff happened. Okay. And I didn't realize that I had all this experience to share that I was holding back on. I didn't realize I was throttling myself. And the reality of the matter is, keeping a part of yourself hidden actually takes up a lot of energy. It's exhausting to keep that wall up, right? So for me, this wasn't a the irony of this is it wasn't a crazy business move that needed to happen. It was just this idea that instead of there being a wall in between my business and my life, I allowed there to be a permeable barrier where my life can feed the business and the business can feed the life. And I can't tell you how much this alignment, or you can call it work-life integration, if you will, has shifted everything in my business. I was so blind to the massive value of letting the most important thing in my life fuel my business. And by opening up that barrier, I let my life feed my business and my business feed my life. And as a result, the growth has been tremendous. The leverage has been tremendous for my business. The way I've been able to serve my clients has been insane, like 10x. Because these two journeys previously were running parallel, this business journey and this recovery journey. And separate, there's no leverage, right? There's a cap there. And I feel like I hit it. And once I combine them, it's like off to the races. Okay. So for me, the number one lesson is this idea of work-life integration or alignment and merging the life and the work. Now, when you hear someone say that, merge your life and work, okay, it's pretty clear in the instance what that was like for me. And it was basically bringing in this life of recovery that I have into my business and letting it fuel that work, okay? But a lot of times when I tell this to people, the first thing they're thinking of is like, oh my gosh, work-life integration. Doesn't that mean that I just will email 24/7? Like, work-life integration sounds terrible. Like I'm never off, like I'm working all the time. People think that like merging those two things would mean checking their email 24/7, never turning off, no free time, burnout. And I think there's such a key distinction here, which is that all those things that I'm talking about that are people's fears when they think about integrating their work and life or bringing more alignment into their business are actually symptoms of a completely different problem. And they're symptoms of problems in the business. Okay. All these problems tend to come from low leverage, not enough leverage. Prices are too low. Okay. No margins, right? Too much marketing. All of these things are core business issues that we then extrapolate and think, oh, well, my business is broken. So if I just did more of it, then everything would suck even more. So you also have to have the foundation of building a business that makes sense. And for most people, I'll talk about this more. This is another point. Generally speaking, that's going to look like the core issue that you need to fix is price. Okay. We'll talk about that more in a second, but put a pin in that. All right. But the great thing about work-life alignment is it just unlocks this beautiful cycle where everything is useful. Your work serves your life and your life is able to serve your work. And at the end of the day, like the difference between liking and hating what you do is how you relate to it. I can sit down at my desk and do the same task, and it can mean pain or pleasure depending on the story that I tell myself about that task. Okay. A perfect example is a year ago, you could not have paid me to open up Premiere Pro and edit a video myself. Okay. I would have paid someone to do it, or I would have just been like, I'm not involved in this at all. Like I'm out of the editing game completely. But it's interesting. Once I found the integration and the alignment, it was easy for me to do that. And I enjoyed it. And that doesn't mean, oh, I'm becoming a video editor or anything like that. But when there was a project that I was excited about and I needed to be involved and it needed my input and my taste, I was easily able to open it up. Something that I would be like, oh, just no, I cannot. I'm out of editing. I'm not doing that anymore. So at the end of the day, alignment is about creating a business that you're happy with, okay? That serves your life and that your life can feed into it and just create this virtuous cycle. Okay. So for me, the word of the year by far is alignment or work-life integration. All right, so the second lesson is what I'm going to call going deeper. And this is a direct side effect of exactly what I'm talking about in terms of alignment. So, like I mentioned, this year, one of the things that I spent a lot of time and energy and focus on was working with these 40 entrepreneurs that I was mentoring. And we got together a couple of times a week, went deep on their businesses. This is probably the closest that I have worked with any clients. And the interesting thing is, during the first 2 to 3 months, our conversations tend to be limited to what I call surface problems. Okay, so these are the things that are on the surface level of the water when you talk about business. Okay, so these are going to be things like sales, delegation, offers, social media, marketing. And something really interesting happened when that alignment took place with my clients. And I think maybe it was around March. I shared with my clients that I was a person in long-term recovery, and that I've been in recovery from addiction for 13 years. And it's crazy. It was like night and day. This unlocked something extremely profound in our engagement. And because I was finally willing to be honest about who I am, they were willing to be honest about what was really going on. Okay. And we were able to get below the surface of surface entrepreneurial stuff that tends to be in the world of like tactics and strategies, your sales, your offers, your marketing, et cetera. And we were able to get much deeper. And as a result, shocking, we were able to solve the real problems. Instead of just putting Band-Aids on issues that seemed to be around tactics, we were able to actually get to the root cause. And I'm going to talk more about what that means. And before you're like, okay, dude, great. Like, what is this? Like what is this, a therapy session? This is the real meat of the work that moves the needle for most entrepreneurs once you get to a certain point. Okay. And I'll give you some examples as I go on here that I think will shift your perspective on this. If you're one of these people that are like, I just need to be told what to do. Okay. I want to shift your perspective on this because it's something that I've observed firsthand. And I think this is really, really important. One of the things that I've learned as well is the tremendous value in the marketplace to solving deep, complex problems. If you want to charge a ton of money, you need to be able to give people something that they never knew they needed. So if your business right now is structured in a way so your clients come to you and they tell you what they need, and then you just give it to them, there will always be a cap on how much value that you can create. Okay? You could be amazing at what you do, but at the end of the day, you're essentially still like an expert order taker. There's nothing wrong with that, but there will be a cap that you'll hit. Okay? When you are able to transcend just order taking, something pretty cool shifts. And when you can give people something that they never knew they needed, that's where real value is created because you're expanding the scope of what is possible for them. Okay. This isn't just like, oh, I was consulting and I gave them this idea that they could have never come up with. All the best products in the world come from this philosophy, right? Think about, the iPod or something, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Yeah. All the inventions that really changed the world are giving people something that they never knew they needed. And a lot of times as an entrepreneur, this means that you need to be able to go deeper than the surface of just, I need a website. And then I'm the person that gives people websites. Okay. There are deeper levels to this. So this segs perfectly into the third point that I want to share. That goes with this idea of going deeper in surface problems. And it is what I call getting to the exact nature or the real problem. And as I continue to work with these entrepreneurs, one of the things that I noticed is most people, most entrepreneurs, myself included, are actually really bad at diagnosing our own problems. So one of the things that I found pretty quickly is that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, is what this person telling me true? And I don't mean this in the sense of, oh, my clients are lying to me or something like that. But it's like there's a plant or something, right? And what they're showing me is what's above ground. And they're saying, look at this, dandelion or whatever. But we need to get below the surface to the roots so that we can actually solve the problem or get to the exact nature. So like 9 times out of 10, when someone showed up, when we're working together, they would have a problem that they had a question about. And a lot of times I'm just trying to figure out, well, okay, what's really going on here? And I'll give you some examples that'll really make this home. But the idea is that you start to just probe and to ask questions so that you can start to understand, okay, what's really going on here? So an example would be, like, just to make this more concrete for you. One time a client asked, so I just want to know, like, how are you organizing your notes? Okay. So on the surface, there's a very simple answer, right? Oh, well, I just use Notion and I set up this database and these are the tags and blah, blah, blah. And this is how I do it. That would be how most people would answer that question. Okay. But that doesn't get to the exact nature of what's really going on here. All right. The way that I would respond to that is I would ask, well, I'm curious, why do you ask that question? Okay. Are they asking because they have a messy folder? Are they asking because they feel overwhelmed? Are they asking because they have too many projects going on? Are they asking because they can't manage their team? The whole point is to get to the exact nature of the why behind the question. And it can be really helpful to have a second person to help you navigate this. Why do you feel like you need notes? Do you even need to take notes? Okay. Are we trying to solve the note problem, or are we trying to go deeper? And in this instance, it might turn out that, like, oh, well, the reason that I need to organize my notes is because I have too many projects going on. And I feel like if I just organize these notes, then I'll be able to manage them. And the exact nature in this instance is too many projects. And the way that we solve that is we need to take a look at, okay, well, what's really going on here with too many projects? Why do you have too many projects? Oh, you have 20 different clients that are going on right now. Why is that happening? Oh, well, I want to make more money. Okay, well, maybe the way that we could solve that is, instead of having 20 clients, let's double your prices and have 5 clients or 10, and then you'll have more space. Okay, and then you don't need to worry about your note database, right? This is just a perfect example. So a lot of times it's just getting to that exact nature of what's really going on with someone, so that you can solve the real problem. And sometimes people are dialed in. They know what the problem is. They've correctly diagnosed it. And then a lot of times that's when it's like a straightforward, very mechanical question or answer thing. It's literally just like, hey, this is what's going on. Ask a couple of questions. Oh, okay, this is what's going on. And then, we're talking about tactics. We're talking about strategies. And we can move really quickly. I'll give you one more example, and then we can go on here. This is such a great one. It's the perfect example of this. And thank you in advance to the client if they watch this, for letting me tell the story. I'm not going to use anyone's name. But I was speaking with one of my clients, and she had this idea that she needed to start a personal brand, which, if you don't have any idea how much work starting a personal brand is, I can tell you it is literally a full-time job. It is not something that I recommend people to just like YOLO start a personal brand. Okay. And she was like, hey, listen, I feel like I really need to start a personal brand. And I was like, okay, well, why? Why do you think that? What's going on there? And she said, well, I feel like my leads, like clients that I'm talking to, they don't trust me. So if I have a personal brand, they'll be able to like see me more, and then they'll trust me, and then I'll be able to close the sale. And it turns out as we got deeper and got to the exact nature, the truth is we pulled up a sales call, and we actually listened to her sales call live. And the fact of the matter was they just weren't going deep enough on their sales call with the clients in order to create trust to be able to close them. So just imagine if I was like, oh yeah, go do a personal brand, go on a year-long side quest to, start an Instagram page or become an influencer or whatever, so that we can solve this problem, when the reality of the problem was just that there are some tweaks that need to happen in the sales calls. Okay. So that's why it is such a responsibility if you're working with clients, like whether you're a mentor or you're a service provider, or even with your team, we really have a responsibility to others to not just like stick to the surface. And I can tell you that this is something I've learned firsthand this year, and I've been guilty of in the past. And in the work-life alignment was a big reason why I was able to get much better at this skill. And it leads me right into this idea, which is the fourth lesson, which is what I call serving versus servicing. And plenty of credit to this term or idea to Blake LaGrange for sharing this. And it's really, really powerful. So most clients are not going to pay a ton of money for someone to tell them that they're doing the right thing. Maybe someone will, but most clients are not going to do this. Clients tend to value someone who will disagree with them, someone who pushes back, someone with a different perspective, someone who can tell them the one thing that they need to hear that no one else will say. And that's the difference between servicing and serving. And when we're talking about going deeper and getting to the exact nature, if you're trying to make a lot of money, you need to have this skill in your toolkit, okay? Servicing a client is giving them what they think they want, okay? And serving a client is giving them what they didn't know they need. So in the past example, if I were to service the client that I was sharing the story with, I would say, oh yeah, go make a personal brand. Let me give you all of my tips. I've done it myself. I can teach you the steps. Do this, and this. And it's a very lazy and sometimes selfish way to help people, okay, by just staying at the surface level. And I have all the answers for the question, how do I create a personal brand? But we need to ask ourselves, should you be doing it? Because the diagnosis is that this was a sales calls issue, okay? And how crazy would it be if we spent a year building a personal brand only to find out that it's still a sales call issue? Okay. And that's why you have to serve your clients. Okay. Serving your clients is giving them what they didn't know they need. Serving is giving your clients what they didn't know they need. So if you're early on in the entrepreneurial journey, there's nothing wrong with a servicing business. It's great for beginners. It's a great way to start. Generally speaking, what that looks like is you find a market opportunity, or you just go out and you ask people, hey, what do you want? And people tell you, hey, I want, my lawn cut. And then you give it to them. And that's a great place to start a business. But the value ceiling on cutting lawns, it's only so high that you can go. Okay. Now, serving is for real experts. It requires much more skill, much more depth, and the ability to hold and handle confrontation. Okay, you have to be willing to tell people they're wrong, that what they're thinking about may not be a good idea. You have to be willing to disappoint them and to say no. Okay, but what is more valuable than the truth, right? When you service a client, generally speaking, you're just going to hear thank you. But when you can really serve your clients, they're going to say, you changed my life. And at the end of the day, it just comes back to this thing that I said before, right? If you want to charge a lot of money, you need to be able to give someone something that they never knew they needed. And there'll always be a cap to how much you can charge to give someone something that they already know they need. Okay. Last point on this, and then we'll get to something a little bit more tactical. If you feel like this has been a little too much serving and not enough servicing, we can talk about some tactical stuff in a second. So if you want to serve people at a high level and really provide a lot of value and really help people, you need to get comfortable with this skill, with searching for the truth. The fact is, most entrepreneurs aren't getting paid enough to go deep and search for the truth, or they don't care enough about their clients. They're just trying to get a check, or they don't want to hurt the person's feelings because they feel like, oh, this is the person that's paying me. The customer is always right. Or maybe they just don't have enough awareness to ask the right questions to be able to get to the exact nature. All right. But the difference between servicing someone and serving them is 10 to 1,000x in terms of price and value. Okay. This is so important. Which leads me to my next point, which is number 5. And this is something that I spent a decade building a business around this philosophy. I created How to Work Less, where if you've taken it, you know that this is the most important point. If you are trying to run a business that is focused on you plus a tiny team, so a one-person business that is extremely profitable and extremely leveraged, where you're not freaking working 1 million hours a week. And I said this once, I'll say it again. I can't believe this isn't common knowledge at this point, but it is the idea that if you want to scale your business, the only lever you should be thinking about is price. Okay, there are a bunch of other ways that you can grow your business, but at the end of the day, for a high leverage one-person business, which is what most of the people that I talk to have, and this even applies as you get bigger and bigger, price will always be the easiest way to scale. And I'll tell you why people don't do it in a second, and maybe you will resonate with this. But if you want to scale the other way, I call it like scaling with volume. And that means, okay, I want to grow my business. Oh, I just need more customers, right? And what happens when you try to grow a business with volume is all of these things happen, okay? You need more people, you need more complexity, you need more systems, you need more delegation, you need more automation, you need lower price and lower profits, okay? The way to make a ton of money is to have a ton of clients. And what you don't realize is that the core skills are going to be building a machine that can handle a ton of people, okay? And that means you need to get a ton of people, which also means more marketing, right? You're always going to be on the search for more and more clients, okay? And the other side of the coin is if you want to scale with price, there's different things that you're going to need. You're going to need to actually provide value. Okay. I gave you a bunch of hints on that. You're going to need to be good at sales. Okay. You're going to need to have conviction in the value that you provide. But you'll be able to have very high profits with very few clients, which means less marketing. And generally speaking, a better business and better life, which is what most people are into. Okay. If you're not trying to, IPO, I would be thinking about profit. Okay, so why don't people do this? It seems pretty obvious. Raise your rates, right? It's like I could probably pull up 100 Instagram posts talking about this right now. But why don't people do it? And it comes down to one thing. It really comes down to fear, whether people want to admit it or not. Most people see scaling with volume as the easier, softer way because they feel like they don't have to get their hands dirty. There's a lot that comes up when you increase your prices internally that you have to deal with. Okay. You are going to have to advocate for yourself at this higher price point. You may need to go out and find new clients, right? You're going to need to be able to get on sales calls and talk about it with conviction. Most people say, okay, well, people are paying me this price. Let's say they're giving me, I don't know, $1,000 for a website. I know that people will pay that. So I'm confident in that. So I feel like I can go out and advocate for that and sell it. So the way I'm going to grow my business is I just need to get 100 clients with $1,000 a website. And people see that as the easier path because, okay, I just need to get 100 clients. I can wrap my brain around that. I've got one client. Well, I'll just do that a lot until I have 100. The alternative is to ask yourself, and this is an extreme example, okay, well, what would I need to do to have one client that pays me $100,000? And then they're like, okay, fear, worry, stress, anxiety. Who would ever pay me this much? I don't even know anyone who would want a $100,000 website. What would I even do for them? What would I even give them? I could never say that number. It's too big, right? So that you always stick with the old low prices that have been accepted. But the problem with this is low prices breaks businesses. Because as you scale and as you get more clients, you don't actually have the margins to keep up with scaling. Because as your business grows, eventually you can't be the person doing every single thing. So you need people, you need systems, you need delegation. But at a low price point, there's no margins to pay for that stuff. So what I see all the time is people spend a ton of time working and they have no profit and more revenue. So it's oh, I have 20 cheap clients, a big team, and a lot of complexity. And I'm looking over here and I'm making less money than the one person business with 3 clients. So how do we fix this? At the end of the day, I think the biggest lever in terms of advocating for yourself and increasing price and scaling with price is a sales issue and a conviction issue around the value that you provide to your clients. And the one thing I always say to people is if you're comfortable with the prices you're charging, I guarantee you're not charging enough. You should be hearing no. People should be telling you you are too expensive, ideal, perfect clients. And if you're not losing projects, at least 1 out of 3, because you're too expensive, the price needs to go up. But people don't want to hear that, right? They just want the easy way. But at the end of the day, there are just sales issues, right? People tell me all the time, oh, I can't raise my prices. The price is too high. Clients don't want it. People will never pay this much. And then I go in and I listen to their sales calls. And it becomes abundantly clear that the core issue is just, okay, you just don't know what you're doing. That's fine, right? I went a long time without knowing what I was doing and just got lucky. But at the end of the day, the core bottleneck and the core issue for people a lot of times as they increase their price is they need to get more comfortable with sales. So that's kind of the core of the issue that is the bottleneck here. So it's not the price that's too expensive. It is that you need to start paying more attention to sales. And no one wants to hear that, right? So then they just think, okay, well, I'll just get more clients because I'm more comfortable with this. But I can tell you that the path to freedom and enjoyment and growth and happiness is to be thinking about scaling with price, okay, as the first lever if you're trying to grow your business. All right, number 6. This is a really, really interesting one and something that I've been thinking about a lot in the second half of the year. Okay, so I call this risk plus failure equals success. And Peter Drucker, who's this management consulting guy, he wrote The Effective Executive and a bunch of other business books. Probably if you know anything about business, a lot of it trickled down from his thought. And he said, all profit is derived from risk. I want to say that again, because this is really important. All profit is derived from risk. That means that everything that we do has risk, okay? Whether you're having a 9-to-5 job or starting a business or trying to get a new client. And the lesson that I've learned this year is that if you're not failing sometimes, you aren't taking enough risks. And the only way to grow is to F up, is to fail. Okay. Zero risk equals zero growth. And this quote has been really top of mind for me, and something that I encourage you to think about kind of as you're going into the next year. And this is the quote: "If the risks we are taking are real, then certainly sometimes we will lose. If we don't occasionally fall short, it probably means we're setting the bar too low. As we accept that we will be okay even when we're disappointed, we start to feel a little more comfortable with the idea of taking risks." Okay? Taking risks as an entrepreneur does not mean loading up your 401k into a YOLO GameStop stock purchase or something like that. Okay? It doesn't mean being stupid. It means taking healthy and appropriate risks where there is not 100% likelihood that everything's going to work out. Okay? There's massive distinction there. But what I've seen with most entrepreneurs is they tend to be really risk averse when it comes to healthy risks, and really stupid when it comes to unhealthy or risks that are too big, existential risks, right? So it's like, okay, the healthy risk that you could take this week, they're like, I don't know, it's a little scary. But then at the same point, they'll do like some stupid investing thing or whatever, right? So at the end of the day, if you're not taking risks, you're not going to fail. That sounds great, right? But if you aren't failing, you're not succeeding. Okay, Seth Godin said something like, the person who succeeds the most is the person who failed the most, right? So if you're not taking risks, you're not going to succeed. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about this year. I took some risks in my business, some of which worked out freaking amazing, and some of which didn't. Like, that could be called abjectly, yeah, this was like a failure. But the lesson that I learned is that the stories we tell ourselves about risk and about failure are often much more painful than the failure itself. Okay? Failing doesn't make you a failure. It's how you grow. Okay? It's not the opposite of success to fail. Failure is success. Okay? So think a lot about that. Maybe there's some areas in your life where you could be more comfortable with risk this year. Alrighty. We're on number 7 here of 10. And this is one that, oh my gosh, this one has really stuck with me this year as we're heading into the age of AI. And most of this, I'm just going to read verbatim from the source, because sometimes I don't need to weigh in. So number 7 is strategic originality. And this is the idea that being yourself is the best strategic advantage. And I caught this on a YouTube video from this musician named Joseph Arthur. This video probably has 1,000 plays on it. It's crazy. And here's what he said. Okay, I'll just read it. If you want your voice heard these days, originality and depth are becoming friendly strategies. Why? Well, because we live in a world of social media noise and AI infiltration. Everyone riding in the vehicle called content, where the biggest platforms reward trends and people making different versions of the same thing over and over again. What could possibly make you stand out in an atmosphere such as this? What could possibly set you apart? Originality will never be an easy lift, so don't get it twisted. Originality will never just be automatically accepted. But as AI comes in and can easily make infinite versions of what has already existed, and as people take to tools of algorithms begging them to fit in, originality is quickly becoming the only strategy that makes sense. Okay? Originality is the only strategy that makes sense. Perhaps all these copycat weapons aimed at the soul of man that seem like the death knell for creativity are the very resistance we need to point us back in the direction of original visions becoming important again. And you couldn't have said it better. Strategic originality, I think, going into 2025, if you are not original, if you are not yourself, you are going to be like everyone else. And I think for a long time, especially early on in social media, and still to an extent now, copying wasn't a bad strategy. If you could figure out what works and duplicate it, you tend to be rewarded. But what we're going to see, in my estimation, with AI is these tools tend to be copying, duplication machines, right? And if AI can create, like what he said, create infinite versions of what has already existed, the only way to stand out is to create something new, and to be yourself. So I think you really need to think hard about whether you're being yourself, and how much time you spend asking yourself, well, what's working right now? What are other people doing? The reason I give you all these lessons and share these with you is not so that you can go out and copy me. It's so that you can apply them to your life. I think there's a time and a place for frameworks and strategies and stuff like that. They're great training reels. But at the highest level where the value is really created, it comes down to originality and depth. And I think this is going to be a hard truth for some people who have gotten by on copying. And I'm not listen, I'm not saying, all these people are like unethical copier people. But it's folks that have gotten by on what's working, what's hot right now. And AI is going to vastly level the playing field on that really quickly. So the only way that you can protect yourself from that is by being yourself. And strategic originality, if it's not in 2025, it'll be in 2026 or 2027. So you better start thinking about who the hell you are as a person. All right, number 8. So this idea or this lesson is called idea space. And this was a lesson that I learned as I shut down my agency, which I ran for over a decade. And as we're deep in our day-to-day, going through our lives, going through the stuff that we do, the options for moves that aren't on the board seemed incredibly limited. Okay. The options for leverage in our life tend to be limited to what's directly in front of us. So I see this all the time when I help clients solve problems. All the options that they seem to come up with seem to be related to the items in our inbox, the clients we currently have, and the work that we're doing now. And as a result, that tends to look something like, I just need to do this 10% better or this 10% faster or work harder. But bottom line is you're going to make less money being busy than you will with space, because all the big shifts come from moves that are not in our purview, right? They're from things that are outside of what you see right in front of you. Okay. And I call this idea space. When our head is down to the work, we miss all of the leverage. All of our ideas tend to be what I call 2X ideas, which are about working hard. 10X ideas are about leverage. And they'll talk about that more in number 10. When our head is down to the work, we miss a lot. We miss conversations. We miss opportunities for new relationships. We miss ideas. We miss insights. We miss perspective. All the things that really freaking move the needle in a business. And I learned this firsthand. When I made the decision to shut down my agency, it was like RAM freed up in my head immediately. I had no idea how much just passive space this business that was basically kind of running on its own. It only took, a handful of hours a week. But it was still running in the background constantly. And when I made that decision to shut it down, it was like, boom, RAM cleared, space. And even though at that point I still had some contracts to close out, just knowing the responsibility was over freed me and created all of this idea space. And when the final client wrapped up, boom, even more space was freed. Okay. So filling yourself to the limit with tasks, with responsibilities, with things that you have to manage, really limits your ability to think creatively about your business. And you end up with all of these 2X moves, which are just like work harder, work faster, get more clients, do this, do that, when all the big shifts come from ideas that are outside of your day-to-day existence. Okay. And the only way that you can have space for these conversations, for these relationships, for these ideas, insights, perspective, is to have enough idea space. So for me, that meant shutting down my agency. For you, I would encourage you to think about what is taking up a lot of RAM in your mind right now, and does it need to be there? Okay. And sometimes that means removing something that's good. It might be something that actually makes money. But you don't think about the opportunity cost of what you can do with that mental space, and what you could possibly be doing if you're willing to let go of this thing that is just simply good in exchange for something great. So that's what I encourage you to think about with the idea space. All right. 2 more. Okay. 2 more. Number 9, this is going to tie right back into a lot of the first lessons that I was talking about. And this is a big one. This is a really big realization. Okay. This might be controversial for some of you, but I encourage you to hear me out. At the end of the day, all meaningful problems in business, in entrepreneurship, are internal and personal. And before you say, wait, but I just need to know how to write the copy on my website. I can tell you often I would have clients come to me and just say, I just need someone to tell me what to do. Okay. And then I do it. I tell them exactly what to do. And then the next week they didn't do it. And then it's like, okay, well, what now? Guess that's not really what was going on. I can't tell you how many times I've told people exactly what to do. And for one reason or another, they don't do it. They do something different. They don't do it right. All of these things at a high level are about our internal state and are about internal work. Right now, the information that is out there is the highest quality it has ever been. I really mean this. The information is the highest quality it's ever been in all of humanity. Okay? And people still think the only thing that's holding them back from getting to the next level is more information. I just need more information. People tend to think that, everything in life will be solved if someone could just tell me what to do. All right. The info is out there. There's no shortage of it. And there is a time and a space. That's why I said at the beginning, all significant problems in entrepreneurship are internal and personal. But what I see with my clients that all get to a certain level is you reach a certain point where you learn the skill of finding the right information and the right people when you need it. And you learn how to solve the information problem completely. Okay? So you get the information. But once that bottleneck is solved, you realize that everything you need to work on is between your ears. And the stuff goes deep. This goes back to getting to the exact nature. Okay? You'll realize that the reason you can't sell is because you don't believe in yourself and you have low self-esteem. And that's because, I don't know, your dad didn't believe in you as a kid, or you always got picked last in sports. The reason you can't charge more is because you have these stories that your family told you about money and wealth and about how rich people are bad, or, wealth is unethical. Or the reason that you can't market and post every day is because you can't be consistent, right? Or because you're procrastinating, or because you have perfectionism. At the end of the day, these are the things that I see are the biggest bottlenecks to growth for entrepreneurs. And no one wants to hear this, because then they don't have to take responsibility for their lives. And when you think, oh, the problem is the information, and if I just had someone to tell me what to do, or the right information, then I could do anything. I can tell you, like, I give people the right information a lot. And what I see between the people that really take off and those who don't is the willingness to do the internal work, and to address the real bottlenecks that come up. So, food for thought in 2024, in 2025. All right, and I'll leave you with the last one, which I think is ironically one of the first lessons I was thinking about at the beginning of the year, and maybe something you should be thinking about as you head into the new year. And this is the difference between effort and leverage. Okay. If we want something that we've never had, we need to do things that we've never done before, or try things we've never tried. And if you really want things to change in your life, you need to be thinking about leverage as opposed to effort. Most people's default for growing their business, is to do more. And there's a tremendous book called 10X is Easier Than 2X that speaks to this point perfectly. If you're trying to double your business, the way that you're going to solve that is by just doing more. You're going to say, okay, if I want 2 times the amount of money that I made last year, I just need to work twice as hard, get 2 times as many clients, do 2 times as many marketing social media posts. And if I just do all of that, then it'll double. And we all know that that's not sustainable, right? All of the ideas that are 2X, that are about doubling, tend to be limited to the things that are directly in front of us right now. And that's effort, right? That's just do more. Okay? If you want to double 2X, you got to do more. But if you want to 10X, okay, it means you need to do basically everything different than you're doing now. It's really easy to imagine 2Xing because it's just more of what you're already doing. But the path to 10Xing often requires a perspective that is outside of yourself, okay? Someone who can tell you, stop doing 80% of the stuff that you're doing. This 20% is the most important stuff where all the leverage is. Shut all the other stuff down, focus just on this one thing, and this will be the path to a business that is 10 times bigger than the one that you have now. Or this will be the path to a life where you are 10 times healthier than you are now, or a life where you are 10 times happier or more fulfilled than you are now. Okay? So 10X is a big shift. It means that your life as you know it right now is not going to work if you're truly committed to 10X. It means that only a sliver, maybe 10, 20% of the stuff that you're doing right now actually works. And everything else is going to have to be taken to the wayside if you want to go in that direction. Now, if you want to limit yourself to 2X, I can tell you that, yeah, you'll just do more of what you're doing now and probably burn out. That's usually what the path to 2X looks like. Okay? So I would encourage you to take a second as I wrap things up here and ask yourself, what would my life look like next year if I were trying to 10X it? You probably would not be doing most of the same stuff that you did last year. And what would you be doing instead? And what would you keep that really moved the needle? I can tell you for me, the things that I need to keep and do more of is mentoring, writing, and bringing these 2 concepts and ideas of entrepreneurship and recovery together. Those are the 10X things that I need to focus on this year. And I believe everything else will come from that. So that's it. Those are 10 lessons that I learned in 2024. It was a pretty significant year of growth for me. And I learned a lot about how to really, really go deep, help people create value, help people grow their business. And I hope you get a ton out of this and you apply it yourself as well. And maybe you lean into some strategic originality in 2025 also. So before I wrap it up, because it is the beginning of the year, if you want to work with me, there are some options that we could talk about. Okay. So first of all, if you are not making any money yet, if you're early on in your entrepreneurial journey, I don't have anything for you. Sorry. I don't have anything to sell you. I have some free stuff, but I believe that there are a ton of great mentors and people and information, right? You might need information right now that can help you with that. So I encourage you to go seek that out and come see me once you made a couple of bucks. So if you are making some money, you've got a business, you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're in the 30 grand to 100 grand, maybe 150 grand. How to Work Less is the place. Okay, you can go to learn.howtoworkless.com and it'll teach you how to design a leveraged, profitable one-person business based around you, based around your ideal situation. Right now, we're offering $1,000 off for January for the next week. So if you've been on the fence about that, encourage you to check that out. And then finally, if you are deeper in the journey and some of these things are resonating with you and you're making six figures, I encourage you to check out the lab. If you want to work closely with me in 2024, where we are literally speaking every week, this is an opportunity. I'm bringing in 10 creative entrepreneurs in January into the lab, which is this mentorship thing that I was talking about. It has not opened up to let people in since last February, 11 months ago. So if you're interested, there'll be a link. You can hop on there or shoot me an email. And if you're trying to go deeper in 2025, I would love to do it with you. So that's it for me. I'll see y'all later. Take care.